big race day at the fairgrounds, Louisiana Derby day, and they've flattered us with an all-stakes pick 5 to close out the card. It comprises races 8 through 12 on Saturday's card. And this looks like a good field, or a good sequence. Leg 1 is the Benson Memorial. It's ungraded at 150,000. It's the 8th race, running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And if we take a look at this field, you'll see it's pretty balanced. You've got a fair amount of early speed, particularly with Hidden Connection and Not So Close, but they are compromised by outside posts, and neither of them usually is there at the finish. They tend to give it up, and I think they're probably going to beat their brains out on the front end, and consequently, I think we're going to have some pace to run to here. So looking primarily at the late runners here. Join the Dance I want to include because this is a horse who seems to be getting better. It's the ubiquitous Dallas Stewart placement in a stakes race, but this one I think belongs. Mainly, the last race was compromised by being way out in the 13 hole, but didn't run a bad race and has been running consistently better each race the last 3. And the fractions have been a little quicker with each race early on for Join the Dance. But the reason being, I think, is more to do with the pace or the post position and having to hustle to get into position. Well, she doesn't have that problem here. She's in the 3 hole, should be able to sit right off the leaders without expending a lot of energy, save a lot of ground on the rail, and has the potential to tactically get first jump on the late runners. So we're going to give Join the Dance one more shot. I'm not overly confident because I'm not sure the will to win is there, but I think this is a good race positionally for Join the Dance. Ouvre, we're going to keep in the race because you got to love a horse like this. She's just a hard knocker, very consistent, always fighting, always in the money. Granted, this is 2 turns, and she does more for running around 1, but I think the class is there, and I'm not going to throw out a horse in this field who has demonstrated grit and a competitive instinct. So Ouvre, the 12 hole isn't the greatest, but if they can work out a trip, has a shot to get into the mix and maybe take it down with a little luck because she is awful classy. So Ouvre will keep in the race. The closers are where I think the thrust of this race is. Messidor is one that I think has been compromised by being a Gulfstream the last couple of races. The form was very good prior to that and was getting better. I think Gulfstream being a speed-favoring track, maybe a little firmer than at the fairgrounds, probably wasn't a track that was suited to her terribly well. But she does have one that is here. Christophe Clement, you never want to underestimate in this type of race. And so Messidor, I think, is a sleeper here, and hopefully we'll get some decent value, but I like her chances. Watch This Birdie is pretty logical. This one just continues to get better and is going to have pace to run to here. In the 4 hole, we'll be able to save some ground early without having to work out too much of a position. And then we'll have to pick our way through probably, but I think that's entirely possible. Watch This Birdie you'd have to like in this spot as well. Now, Spirit and Glory was a horse that we really liked in the last race. But, she saved ground on the rail all the way and had everything her own way. And I never like having a horse back in a race where they just had everything their own way. This is a horse I think has quality and certainly is in good form and, can factor in this race. I just happen to like others a little better because, again, she had everything her own way. So we'll use her. But to me, I think Messidor and Watch This Birdie are the 2 that I really like the most in this race. And for value purposes, Messidor in particular. Leg 2 is the New Orleans Classic. And this is part of the Bayou Bluegrass Pick 5, which we have a posting for if you want to take a look at that. That looks like a really fun sequence. It's got all the Derby and Oaks preps in it with the New Orleans Classic. It's the 9th race on the card. It's a 1.125 for 4-year-olds and up. And this is kind of a, to me, you've got a lot of horses with, first of all, who are a little on the disappointing side, in particular Red Route 1 and Happy American. And really, to me, what the defining characteristic of this race is the will to win. And I think you can't get any better than that when you're talking about Touch Upon a Star. Now, there's going to be other competitors for the pace in this race. That's true. But Black Belt is just coming off a 2-turn race for the first time. And while he did run a pretty good race, it was loaded with horses who didn't run. And most of them were late runners. And so she sort of had, or he rather, sorry, sort of had a very advantageous type of race, and had great position, had token speed that he could take down pretty easily. I'm not sure that Black Belt really wants 2 turns all the time, so I'm going to fade. I think Touch Upon a Star will get the lead and be able to slow things down, and I'm not sure Black Belt can hang in there. Best Actor had every chance to win the last race. Could not have asked for a better scenario. Was a race loaded with closers, was the lone speed, and still couldn't get it done. And Best Actor, to me, is kind of a paper tiger in some ways. And I think when you have a race where you have just about as perfect a scenario as you can have and don't win, to me, that kind of speaks to maybe this horse is a little lacking here. So I'm going to fade Best Actor as well. Now, Gasoline is a horse I've never really been that keen on. Seems to be overrated. Every time you expect this horse to run a big race, he doesn't. But the last time I thought he ran a pretty good third, and it was coming off the bench and is eligible to improve and does have the back class to be competitive in this race. And so I'll throw Gasoline in there as one sitting just off the leaders. And if he's good enough, if he can put his best foot forward, then has a chance. And then of the others, Money Supply to me is another one, very much like Touch Upon a Star, has won 5 in a row, is just a competitor, and I think this is the kind of race that really is a little going to be a little troubling because Touch Upon a Star is going to be awful hard to run down. But if anybody can do it, I think of the closers, Money Supply to me has the best chance. But I like Touch Upon a Star in this race. If you don't like Touch Upon the Star, you don't like horse racing. This is an awesome horse and is stepping up into Grade 2 company. That's true when he primarily runs against Louisiana breds. But I don't consider this to be the greatest of Grade 2 fields, and I think he's a good fit. I like Touch Upon a Star. Leg 3 is the Muniz Memorial Classic. It's a Grade 2. It's the 10th race, run at a 1.125 on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. And this is our this is our usual suspects race. We've got a lot of horses we see all the time, particularly at the fairgrounds. Rising Empire, Strong Quality. I'm Very Busy, Beatbox. Gigante, Johnny's Fireball. They've all ran in the last race where Beatbox was finally able to get over the top and chase down Strong Quality in a really good finish. Strong Quality, I'm going to fade here, and the reason being is his last 3 races has been a decline in speed figures over the last 3, and I just have a feeling this horse needs a break. Has been running big for a number of races in a row, and I think it's just this is a race. While being the lone speed, there are enough horses here to pressure, and I don't see him able to wire this field for that reason. Of the pace pressers, I'm Very Busy outran what my expectations were for him in the last race. Had a good second. It was a very big effort, and you do have to wonder if perhaps there's a bounce coming. But this one is looks maybe the light bulb has gone off, and if so, will be in very good position tactically, right behind Strong Quality. and has a chance. So we're going to use I'm Very Busy. Beatbox got over the top last time and has been in good form consistently. And I see no reason why he won't run his race again, and we'll just see if it's good enough. But Beatbox is certainly one you have to like. Gigante is one. I liked his race last time. I thought it was a pretty good effort. He was a little short maybe coming off the bench, but this is a horse who's been steadily improving, and with another step forward, I think can factor here. So Gigante is one I think we have to use. Johnny's Fireball is a horse you have to love. He always fires his best. I'm just not sure he's quite good enough to take this one down. So we're going to use him underneath in the try and the super and perhaps in the exacta. I just wonder about his top end to take this one down. But he's going to run his race. He always does. And we'll just see if it's good enough. Web Slinger you would have to really like in this race. Coming off the bench, off the Pegasus World Cup turf, he had all kinds of trouble in that race and still persisted. You always love to see that. With a good trip here, I would say he's the horse to beat. Class-wise, aside from strong quality, I think he is the class of this race. And again, I think, I don't know how much pace he'll have to run to, but I'm not sure it's going to matter for him, really. He's a really nice horse, and I think he'll run a big one here, and I expect him to take this one down. Irish Aces is a very interesting horse. If you look at the past performances, this one has got a little bit better with every single race. And in the Tampa Bay turf last time, he ran a pretty good race. He saved ground, as the late runners do, but then he swung out and had some kick late. And he probably had a little too much to do, and that might be the case here. But he is steadily improving, and if Web Slinger runs into problems, then Irish Aces may be the one to spring the upset at a really big price. But I think Irish Aces is one you certainly have to use. But to me, Web Slinger will be the horse to beat here. Leg 4 is the Fairgrounds Oaks. It's a grade 2. It's an Oaks prep. It's the 11th race. It's running 1 1/16 for 3-year-old fillies. And this is an interesting race in that Alpine Princess is dual entered in the Bourbonnette over at Turfway, so we'll have to see what she does. I would say the Bourbonnette would be more likely. Class-wise, her graded stakes efforts haven't been the greatest. The Bourbonnette is ungraded, so I have a feeling that that's where she'll run, but we'll see what Brad Cox wants to do. Our Pretty Woman, to me, is extremely interesting. This was an expensive horse. I believe it was $1.4 million. And has shown steady improvement, and in the last race wired the field and an allowance company, and did so with a really solid effort, and it was a little better than some of the others who were coming in here off of maiden or allowance wins. And I think because especially if Alpine Princess scratches, then she should have the lead all to herself. And it may be a situation very similar to the Louisiana Derby with Track Phantom, in that they'll have to run her down. And if she's good enough and can take another step forward, it's highly possible. And I think Our Pretty Woman is one that you have to consider to spring the upset. Midsummer March is more a horse I would use underneath. I think he'll just keep running more than anything else. That's really the only appeal here. I don't think this one is ready to win a graded stakes, but one that I think you can maybe keep in the mix for under, particularly when you consider Vivi's Dream, I think, is distance challenged and has proven so in 2 straight 2-turn races, and that's enough for me. While it's a nice horse, I'll wait for the cutback to sprints or mile races. And Accommodate Eva, isn't good enough and will be falling back too. So that may spring things for Midsummer March to get into the mix. Tarifa and Intricate, to me, are the 2 horses you have to consider the primary win candidates. I like Intricate better. That Goldenrod, I thought, was a really nice effort, and she finished a good second coming off the bench, probably needed a race. And this being the penultimate race prior to the Oaks, more than likely. I think she's going to be fired up and ready to roll. And I just think she's a little bit better horse than Tarifa. The last race for Tarifa, she won and closed into slow fractions, so maybe you can give her a little bit of credit for that. But I just, watching her, I was like, maybe it seemed more circumstantial than anything else that she won that race. I just don't, I'm not sure how good she really is. But I'm more certain about Intricate, and that is splitting hairs. And if you want to use both of them with Our Pretty Woman, I wouldn't talk you out of it. But I like Intricate to take this one down. Lucky Got Game is a closer at the fairgrounds, and that's really the appeal more than anything else. I don't think this horse is good enough to win the race, but certainly using in the exotics makes a lot of sense, particularly when you have a couple other horses who I think will be falling back, and that'll allow Lucky Got Game to probably suck up for third or fourth. So now we come to the Leg 5, the Louisiana Derby, the one we're all waiting to see. It's the 12th race, running a mile and 3/16 for 3-year-olds. And this field is, we've talked about this, and incidentally, we have individual postings for this one. So if you, the Fairgrounds Oaks. So if you want a little more in-depth analysis for all the horses, you can go take a look at that, and I encourage you to do so. Track Phantom, to me, is going to have everything his own way, just like the Risen Star. It's very similar in that regard. Antiquarian, I think, is a good horse and is going to get better, but I think it's a little early coming off a maiden win where he won wire to wire. It did so pretty impressively, but really didn't beat a whole lot, and the class rating wasn't that high. So I think this is a horse that's going to get progressively better. I'm not sure is ready to take down Track Phantom. Track Phantom's fractions, if you look at them, is kind of a one-paced horse, but they really tower over the rest of this field, in particular the late fraction. And really, I think it was more Sierra Leone just running a great race as opposed to Track Phantom running a bad one, or having problems with the distance, or really anything else. I think Track Phantom ran his race, and Sierra Leone was better. That's all there is to it. In this field, without Sierra Leone, I think Track Phantom has a very good chance to take them all the way. Next Level hasn't proven good enough, and Hall of Fame had every chance in the Risen Star and didn't rise to the occasion. I think it's a little early for a gun runner, and so all Hall of Fame I don't like in the spot. So if you throw them out, then it looks really good for Track Phantom. So of the other runners, Real Men Violin, if he had a race under his belt and probably needed it, you never know with Kenny McPeeks. But if he can get back to that form he displayed in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and move forward from it, I didn't like the race. I'll be honest. I thought he had every chance to win it and didn't, which doesn't get me real excited about this one's chances. But in this field, in this race, being closer to the pace than some of the other more prominent runners, if Track Phantom falters for some reason, Real Men Violin could be right there, and you'll probably get some value given the subpar effort in the last race coming off the bench. Common Defense, another Kenny McPeek, and the unpredictability of Kenny McPeeks is well noted. We didn't expect. I thought in the Smarty Jones he would run a better race than, I believe that was his prior to the Rebel, but he didn't. But he did run it in the Rebel Stakes. Saved all the ground. Had everything his way, and did still run a good race, and had every chance, just wasn't quite good enough to take down Timberlake. I'm not necessarily certain that a move forward is likely, but I think Common Defense does make sense in here because you do have that potential, and if he can make a move forward, he's got the potential to take it down. Tuscan Gold, a Chad Brown trainee, broke really slow in his maiden race, but did come on with a grinding effort to draw off. Didn't beat a whole lot, but he did get a really good class rating, and that speaks to some potential there. And if he runs the same way as he did in the last race, he's probably looking at second to me. He will have to break better. He will have to be more forwardly placed. That's certainly possible with a Chad Brown trainee. But coming off a maiden, going into a graded stakes with a proven front runner like Track Phantom who will have everything his own way, I think it's a big challenge. But Tuscan Gold, I think, is one to use, probably more likely for the exotics underneath. Agate Road had a pretty good Sam Davis. He closed against the bias, I believe, and he was coming late. But he also leaves himself too much to do, and he has a lot of seconds. I don't know, in this particular scenario, he would have to run a Sierra Leone type of race to catch Track Phantom, in my opinion, and I don't think he can do it. If you look, I think Mike Rapoli is really jonesing to get a horse into the Derby, with fierceness being a question mark. And so he seems to be throwing a lot against the wall to see who sticks, moving Agate Road off of turf. Agate Road is also dual entered in the Jeff Ruby. Synthetics might be a better bet for him, so we'll just have to see. But I think for this race, on dirt, underneath is probably more likely. Catching Freedom, we know what the issue is. He's green. He's just very green, and it costs him each time. He ran a good Risen Star, no question, but he also did it very greenly, and that's the second race that's been very glaring in a row. He's a tough ride. They keep changing jockeys on him because he is such a tough ride. Now, Brad Cox certainly is the trainer to correct that type of problem and get him to settle a little better and mature. And if he does, he has a chance here. But again, he will have to run a really big race because he does come from off the pace. And tactically, I think he, like the other late runners, is at a pretty good disadvantage, but certainly one with the potential to take this one down. His last two races, I don't know that he necessarily took a move forward from either of them. He ran about the same, and that's kind of the other thing, is that he may be plateauing. So Catching Freedom, I believe, is probably going to be an underlay for those reasons, but I think is one you certainly have to consider. Honor Marie represents to me the horse with the best chance to run Track Phantom down. Loved his 2-year-old campaign. Just improved with every single race. And in the Risen Star coming off the bench, he didn't run a bad race. He broke slowly, but he did close with interest. And I think with a race under him, it's very possible that he will run a monster here. He's going to need it to get into the Derby, so all the more reason to think he's going to be tuned up all the way. And if he's good enough, I think he can run down Track Phantom. He represents to me, of the other runners, the logical one to beat Track Phantom, but I think it's Track Phantom all the way on the lead. So if we look at our ticket, we're going to take a stand in a couple of areas. I think you've got to spread in the 2 turf races at the fairgrounds. So we will. We're going to use 2, 3, 4, 9, and 12. We're going to single Touch Upon a Star. I just love the will to win, and I don't think that there's horses that are really going to challenge him on the pace, on the lead, and he is going to be awful tough to stop. And so I will single him there. And in leg 10 in the Muniz, we're going to use 3, 4, 5, 7, and 13. I think that's a spread race. Singling Touch Upon a Star allows us to spread liberally there. And then in leg 4, the Fairgrounds Oaks, I think it's Intricate's race to lose, but we're also going to throw Our Pretty Woman in there to potentially spring the upset on the lead. And then in the Louisiana Derby, I think it's Track Phantom's race to lose, but I'll throw in Honor Marie there as the one with the most, the biggest chance, the biggest possibility of running him down. Is going to have to run a race like Sierra Leone did, but I think it might be possible. So we'll use 7 and 12 there. So that's 5 times 5, 25 times 2 is 50, times 2 is 100. It's a $50 ticket on a 50-cent base. And if we can get some value in race 8 or 10, or perhaps we can get home Our Pretty Woman in the Oaks, then we're looking at a pretty good ticket for minimal outlay. But there's a lot of ways to go in a couple of these races. So I think we just plant our flag and take a stand, and hopefully we take it down.